The first reading is a reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. For Zion's sake, I will not be silent. For Jerusalem's sake, I will not be quiet, until her vindication shines forth like the dawn, and her victory like a burning torch. Nations shall behold your vindication, and all kings your glory. You shall be called by a new name, pronounced by the mouth of the Lord. You shall be a glorious crown in the hand of the Lord, a royal diadem held by your God. No more shall people call you forsaken, or your land desolate, but you shall be called my delight, and your land espoused. For the Lord delights in you, and makes your land his spouse. As a young man marries a virgin, your builder shall marry you. And as a bridegroom rejoices in his bride, so shall your God rejoice in you. The word of the Lord.
The second reading is a reading from Paul to the Corinthians. Brothers and sisters, there are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit. There are different forms of service, but the same Lord. There are different workings, but the same God, who produces all of them in everyone. To each individual, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for some benefit. To one is given through the Spirit the expression of wisdom. To another, the expression of knowledge according to the same Spirit. To another, faith by the same Spirit. To another, gifts of healing by the one Spirit. To another, mighty deeds. To another, prophecy. To another, discernment of spirits. To another, varieties of tongues. And to another, interpretation of tongues. But one and the same Spirit produces all of these, distributing them individually to each person as he wishes. The word of the Lord.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. There was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the wedding. When the wine ran short, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, how does your concern affect me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servers, "Do whatever he tells you." Now there were 6 stone water jars there for Jewish ceremonial washings, each holding 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus told them, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Draw some out now and take it to the head waiter." So they took it. And when the head waiter tasted the water that had become wine, without knowing where it came from, although the servers who had drawn the water knew, the head waiter called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves good wine first, and then when people have drunk freely, an inferior one. but you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this as the beginning of his signs at Cana in Galilee, and so revealed his glory, and his disciples began to believe in him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So we're back into the full swing of ordinary time. The priest is wearing green again. Our decorations are put away. We're back in what's the season of ordinary time in the church. And sometimes people can think of ordinary time as boring. In fact, sometimes people can think of faith in general as being fairly boring. There's a well-known song by Billy Joel that has a verse of, "I would rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints." And many times, even Catholics, even faithful Christians can kind of feel that way. It seems like people who are active in their faith, they bemoan all the things going wrong, and they don't notice all the good things in life. But that's not what our faith is meant to be. Our faith is meant to be a faith of joy, a faith filled with joy. And I love this particular gospel passage as a reflection of that. Many times this gospel passage comes up at weddings. It's the wedding feast of Cana. We could probably tell it from memory, more or less, with barely missing a word. But what I love in this passage is the numbers. If you haven't figured out yet, I'm kind of a numbers guy. I like math, at least I did until I met calculus. They take 6 stone water jars, each holding 20 to 30 gallons. 6 times 20 to 30 is 120 to 180 gallons of wine. But that's not even the best part of it. The wine in the era of Jesus Christ is not wine as we know it now. It was much stronger wine that had to be watered down, usually in a 2-to-1 type solution. So you're talking about 300 to 500 gallons of wine. Jesus knows how to throw a party. Jesus wants joy in our lives. He wants us to live lives filled with joy, lives filled with love, lives truly filled. And that's what Billy Joel misses out on. I'd rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints. The saints, when they're crying about the things going wrong, it's because they realize how empty people are left afterwards. Think of your favorite sin. We all have one, that sin you go to time and time again. I know mine. No, I'm not about to tell you. We all have our favorite sin, and it leaves us feeling empty. It leaves us afterwards feeling dry, feeling regret, feeling remorse. We go back to it time and time again, thinking this time is going to be different. That's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Christ looks at us and says, I bring you something different. I bring you something different. Forgiveness, love, joy. And that is meant to be the ordinary life of a Catholic, of a Christian. Our ordinary days are to be filled with forgiveness, love, and joy. What does it look like to have a heart filled with these things? There's an old Latin phrase. I've probably used it once already, and I'll probably use it 100 times again before I get transferred. Nemo dat quod non habet. No one gives that which he doesn't have. To give forgiveness, we first need to spend time reflecting on that gift of forgiveness. That God looks at you in your life and says, I love you. I love you more than your sins offend me. I love you more than the worst thing you've ever done. I love and forgive you of everything. To let that sink into our heart. that God's love forgives us. To bring our sins to the confessional and hear that concretely said to us, "You are forgiven. Go in peace." To let that fill our hearts and realize that God says, "You are worth my love. I make you worthy of my love." To reflect on that love, that forgiveness, and then to turn around and look at our neighbor. How many of our friends, family members, or neighbors have done something that upset us? Something that was rude, something that was inconsiderate. I'm not saying they didn't do anything wrong. In fact, I'm saying they did do things wrong to you. But if you realize how loved and forgiven you are, how much strength do you have to turn to somebody else and bring them love and forgiveness? Think of the last time you did something for yourself. It was probably okay. Think of the last time you did something for someone else, and you almost automatically start to smile a little bit. Why? Because we were made for love. And when we really give of ourselves, when we really give forgiveness, when we really give love to others, that's when we find our hearts filled with joy. As we enter into this ordinary time, may we have truly extraordinary lives, always letting God's love and forgiveness come into our heart, letting that love and forgiveness be shared with the world, and through that, be filled with the joy of Jesus Christ, who loves us enough to give us his forgiveness, to give his life for us.